we are. I'm going to do this stop. Okay, perfect. Beautiful, beautiful. So here we are. Welcome, Maher. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Dee.
So, I want to introduce you guys to Maher. Oh, you cannot see me here on Instagram. Hold on. Let me adjust this here. Let's put it a little bit this way. So, I want to introduce you guys to Maher. He's been helping me for a couple, well, we know each other for maybe about a year or two, something like that. Yeah. And he's been helping me with my niece. That's how everything started. We have a friend in common. She introduced us both, and she said he's an amazing massage therapist. I said, okay. So then what it turned out is I end up having some issues on my knees that if you follow me, you hear me complaining about it in some ways. I stopped running. I stopped doing a lot of different things because my knees were bothering me. And on top of that, I end up, let me move the microphone here. And on top of that, on last year, I was doing yoga online and I did a terrible movement, and the next thing I hear is crack right here. And I was limping for almost a month. I could not, I will go down the stairs, be on my computer, and I will not move from there. Basically, going to the bathroom was a whole journey just to walk to the bathroom and come back. So anyway, that's what happened. And then I remember our friend Melissa is speaking highly of his skills. And I said, okay, I think I really need to give him a call. It is time. I cannot continue doing this because I couldn't do squats without pain. I could not jump or anything like that. It was a complete, out of, the conversation for sure. So definitely, and that's how you have been working on my body. And one of the things that we were talking offline, it is about self-awareness, or just creating, making sure that you are aware. So what are the things that, first of all, you find that when people come and see you, they say, not necessarily talking about injuries, right? Because these days everybody have injuries in some ways or form.
For sure.
But putting the injuries aside, because that will be another conversation. But what are the things that you notice about people when it comes to awareness?
Quite often, I feel like important things that I should know come about later in the conversation. I'm fairly sure you just told me for the first time now that about your yoga and your crack in your knee, and I feel like that's something you should have told me at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But that's quite common. Is that I'll be doing a health history intake at the beginning of a session the first time I meet somebody, and I'll be asking them questions over when it started, what makes it feel worse, what makes it feel better. Trying to get as much information as I can to kind of piece things together to get an idea of what structures in the body are affected, what's implicated.
Go for it.
Yeah, and then they'll answer some of these questions, and then I'll find out later on. So I'll begin the treatment, and as the treatment is progressing, there's a bit of a conversation about what's going on and why it feels like this, or breathing is a really important part of my practice. And then all of a sudden they'll tell me things that I'm like, oh, you didn't tell me that at the beginning.
Good example just now.
Right. So yeah, that's super common. And they're like, oh, I didn't think you needed to know that, or I didn't think that was important, or that was a part of this, or things along those lines. And you'd be surprised the extent of important things like surgeries. People think that even C-sections, they think that C-sections are not something that I need to know about. Well, when you think about what a C-section is, you're just cut right into your abdominal core, tore it apart, and then stitched it back together. That takes and quite often there's no rehabilitation process. There's no intentional. You just go about your daily life and you just tore apart your core.
Yeah.
And so like, that's a pretty major invasive procedure in the body, and so it plays a part in your back. It plays a part in every part of your body of things that are going on. So it's important to know about these things and how they might affect you. Yeah.
So what are the things that you think people should pay attention to when it comes to body awareness? So is it important that they there's something that you said that is very interesting, right? That it's about like when people are used to a pain or lack of mobility in certain direction even, right? And then that becomes your, what were you saying, that becomes your normal?
Yeah, the new baseline.
Oh, the new baseline.
Right.
So explain us a little bit about that. So people become aware of their body now.
Right. And so like one of the primary mechanisms that our nervous system communicates with us is, it's called the threshold mechanism. And so what happens is we have a baseline of how our body works and functions. And over time, when things happen, injuries, incidences, bad posture, bad sleeping, bad, lifestyle choices that we make, our body communicates with us and sends us signals. It becomes sore, it becomes tender, it becomes restricted, there's pain, and quite often is initially we're just like, oh, I'll just put up with it, it'll eventually go away.
Yeah.
And so through the threshold mechanism, it does sometimes kind of go away. And your body's sending you a signal, and if you keep ignoring it long enough, it's part of the survival mechanism is that if it's receiving this signal and you're not doing anything about it, the body needs to become aware of stimulation from the environment to keep itself safe. And so if it's receiving this signal, it doesn't have enough awareness of other things that could potentially be dangerous. So it eventually starts to filter this signal out because it's just chronic, it's just there, you're ignoring it. So the body's like, okay, part of the biological survival is to filter that out so it can tune into other things that could be dangerous for us. So then that becomes our new baseline. And all of a sudden now, if anything happens after that, it only feels like a little sore, a little tender, because it's filtered everything that's happened before. And now that's your new baseline you're operating from. But you've built layers and layers of these new baselines over time. Yeah,
wow. And that's very interesting, because how many of you guys, like the audience that is listening to this, have been in that situation before? I think we all at some point have been there, right? Yeah. In one way or another, like whether it was like a major injury or just something that I move weird today and then something just happened, right?
Yeah, every single one of us has done this, even myself. Every one of us does it.
Yeah, totally. And there's something I like about your style, because the one thing for sure is you talk about breathing, so how important breathing is, and then when he's doing his sessions, he's always guiding people to breathe and to do to go through it, right? Because it is, you use this technique, and it's not, and I like it because it's not like, oh yeah, let's go, and then just kind of, and then you're like, okay, seriously, did I pay for this? Which is fine. I guess people that like that kind of massage, it is fine. However, it's not what I like. I want to make sure that I'm getting, the full benefits out of it. So what are the things that you do and how you do it?
I think it's really important to kind of connect with in terms of therapist-client situation, to kind of gauge for what the client wants as an outcome for the treatment, for like where they are at, what's going on with them, and what kind of an outcome they like or they're looking for. And everybody wants very different things. And in terms of massage therapy, it can be very, as you pointed out, quite drastically different approaches to treatment. And it's not like one treatment is any less effective than others. It's that it could be effective for, like you're talking about a relaxation type treatment, that could be effective for a different outcome than what you are particularly looking for. So I think it's important to find a therapist that knows or can understand what you are looking for. It's important for you to become aware of what you need in a treatment. Quite often people don't know the different types of massage therapy out there, and it's understandable. Like, each treatment is quite expensive, so it's not like you can go and try 30 different therapists and learn all the different styles and approaches to treatment. And each therapist can also have many different tools in their toolbox. So just becoming aware of where you are at and what is your goal. I want to move better. I want less pain. I want to sleep better at night. I want to wake up without, feeling this. Like, I don't want to wake up in the morning and be completely stiff and have to like roll over out of bed. I can't lift myself up. Yeah. And it's important to have a very specific, like, what do I want and how am I going to get there? And have that conversation with your therapist.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting because I can understand now more. Like, what are the different things that people would like to have, right? And even for myself, like, it's just, I want to make sure that I am agile, because it's part of aging, right? Like, when we start losing our agility, it is a result of aging and not gracefully, right? Like, it's just on the opposite direction.
Yeah. So to add a little bit more, I mean, it is part of the aging process to a certain extent. But we shouldn't, what's the right word, settle that's part of the aging process. I think it's like, in terms of the aging process, more of a cultural context that we, as we get more responsibilities, the way our society is structured, we become more sedentary. Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily an exact byproduct, because there's exceptions to the case where there's people that age quite gracefully, as you said. And they move through the aging process. And so it's when we become more sedentary that our body adapts to that. And the less you move, it's a cascading descent into less movement and less agility, less range of motion, everything. And then the more you do that, it's just a downward spiral of poor health in general.
Yes, yeah, totally. Because the thing is, when movement, or even range of motion, rotation, all those different things that we can do with our body, they start getting less and less. Like, it's gonna be eventually, like, it's like, next thing is a wheelchair. Yeah. Honestly.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's just that deterioration, like, of the body for lack of movement and maintenance. Yeah. Right? So would you suggest that people should come and see you on regular basis, or someone like you?
It totally depends. You got to look at your circumstances, to be honest, and see what best suits your particular circumstances to be the most effective. And it's really helpful to ask your therapist a lot of questions. The more questions you ask, the more that they understand where you are at, what you're looking for, and can kind of guide you. And a really good therapist is happy to refer you out to somebody that can contribute more effectively to where you are at and what you could use. So potentially, like, a personal trainer, a movement specialist, things along those lines, right? Yeah. Maybe a chiropractor, whatever it is. But the more that you ask questions, the more that we can get an idea of what better suits you. Yeah. In particular.
Yeah, no, totally. Because it's super, super, super important. And I want to mention that I'm cross-legged right now, and I wasn't able to do that, honestly. It was my left knee. It will be completely in pain just to be cross-legged. So those are the things that I think the fact, I didn't realize until last week that I automatically set cross-legged, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing it, because it goes with what you were saying before, right? Yeah. It's we have this baseline, and the baseline was very bad. And then now that I'm improving, I can see the difference, because it seems it's a natural thing for me to sit up on the floor like cross-legged, and for the longest time I always have to modify. Right? And adjust, and I have all my props here, and then just put it under my knee, just kind of, so then it will be easier for me to sit up. So those are things that are definitely important. Yeah. And the other aspect that we were talking about earlier, it is rotation. Yeah. So I wonder how many of you basically can do this the rotation movement to the right or to the left without having the hips going with you. Okay, so and I want you to try that. So see if you're like when you're seated, it's easier because your hips are on the floor on this chair, and then you can rotate easily. The question is, if you're standing, would you be able to keep your hips facing forward and create that rotation of your torso with ease?
Yeah.
That is the other thing.
Right.
And it's the rotation of your torso, not the rotation of your neck.
Yeah. Or,
because
or a separation between your upper body and your lower spine, your upper spine and your lower spine. Like
exactly, that's another thing, right?
Yeah.
Because most of us have the tendency to move our neck when we're doing a twist in one of the yoga positions. Then we have the tendency to move our neck because it's more flexible in some ways, their spine. But the beauty of the spine, and I know if you guys study that at school, but the beauty of the spine is that it is as flexible forward as backward and sideways. It's just that we don't use it. So the only way that we use our spine, it is to create movement on the front plane, not on the back plane. And then when you see people doing back bends and stuff, that is also a natural part of natural movement of the spine. So what are the things that people could do about it? Because it's so stiff.
That's a great question. It's super important. I would recommend that you go seek somebody who's an expert in spinal health.
Yes.
To dive deeper into that. But really, like, it's just what you're saying is move into all the places and find the restrictions, find the places that are uncomfortable, and move into the places that are uncomfortable. The more that we do that, the more that will expand.
Yeah.
Because our body will shrink down into the comfortable range that we allow ourselves to be in. And so what happens is then all of a sudden now the new shrunken range becomes our comfort zone, and you don't even move to the end of that. So then it continues. Our comfort range begins to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink as we don't push the boundary, we don't push the edge. And so it's really important that we move into all the ranges. Yeah. And so yoga can be really effective for a lot of people, and in different movement practices. But just it's important to play and to move and to dance and to shake, and like you have a fitness ball right there. Yeah. That's great for getting on your back and doing back bends on it. It's a great support. Yeah. On it too.
Because the other thing is was some of the things that I noticed with through yoga. I normally do like the Bikram style, like the hot yoga kind of, and I haven't been in a back bending clinic, which I would like to, because having a healthy spine, it is key. Yeah. It is, because if everything runs through a spine, absolutely everything, and people don't even think of it, we take it for granted.
Right. It's like the highway for the body. All the signals go from every aspect of the body through the spine, up and down. Yeah. It's the highway that we conduct all of our information, all of the movements, all the electrical signals to all your muscles go through the spine.
Yeah. Because as a massage therapist, you have to have a good understanding, because when you're doing massage, my understanding is you never go through the spine, correct?
No, typically we focus on the paraspinal, so the muscles to the side of the spine, and they can be like right into the edge of the spine. So you'll have each vertebra, you'll have your lamina right beside it, and typically there's like little tiny muscles in the paraspinals, and sometimes you focus in and you get a little deeper into some of those ones, and then there's the bigger paraspinals that go all the way up and down. Some people call them the back straps or the erector spinae group. And typically those are the larger muscle group that we're focusing on as well.
Yeah. Okay. Because and it's the spine. It is so important. And what I was going to say earlier is the one thing through doing yoga and start attempting to do get deeper into the back bend. It is. We have, and this is a very generic statement, but a lot of us fall into that. We are very flexible on the lower part of your spine. Okay, so when you're back bending, you normally move the lower part, but the midsection of your spine and the upper section, we're very, 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 like our mobility is very little. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with our lifestyle. I'm sure it has a lot to do with the lack of movement and what you have been explaining about getting into that comfort and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's so normally we're trying to pinch the lower back because we think that's a way to do the back bend. And the idea it is to, and when I became aware of that, I realized how, short range of motion I have on my spine. Because at this point, it is to have the ability and become aware of every single vertebrae, creating that, being part of the back bend, for example, instead of just the lower part. Or the section that is close to the neck also can be more flexible. But the top and the middle section, we are very, very stiff when it comes to that, and creating that back bend movement. It's super, and like it's super limited in in general, right?
Right. Yeah. There's some interesting tools that can help, especially with the muscles around that. Also helpful to see a specialist like a chiropractor in that area, or physiotherapist, or your massage therapist. But yeah, it's actually a really important point that you bring up. A lot of it actually starts with breathing, to be honest with you. So when a lot of us are shallow breathing, a lot of us we're in like this, and we're shallow breathing, and so it tightens up our thoracic cage, our thoracic structures, and that limits everything, just tightens in and just shrivels inward. And even yesterday, I was with Melissa, and one of her friends was a chiropractor, and he was teaching us a functional fitness program. And we first started with breathing, and we first started with expanding our entire upper body. And you really have to feel, just like how you were describing, each vertebra stretch and expand, and you really have to feel it and open it, and it's like a zipper is how he was describing it to us. And he's like, go, like, tune into your body and feel each vertebra stretch upward and expand. And so like when you reach upward, you don't want to just reach up with your arm like this. You want to reach and expand your entire thoracic cage, your entire upper body, and you want to feel your ribs stretch and open up, and you want to breathe through all of that, all the way down into your belly and all the way up through your thoracic cage.
No, that's super important. And breathing, it's very, very important. And even when people like exercise, and when you're getting a massage and stuff like that, everybody, it's very common, I wouldn't say everybody, but it's very common to see and then just paralyze your breath and just get right there. And what it does, it creates stress. So when you're getting a massage, it doesn't help you to move through it and help relieve that pressure or whatever it's happening in your body. And it's the same thing when you exercise, right? Like it's just a matter of keeping that breath smooth in some ways, because it's sending the wrong message if you're under stress.
Right. So our breathing regulates our nervous system. That's why it's so important. So I often ask people, I'm like, how are you breathing? And I'm not an expert on breathing. I will send somebody to Melissa if we need to talk about breathing, right? And so like, and people will look at me, they're like, what do you mean? I'm breathing, I'm alive, of course I'm breathing. And there's so much more to it. So we have involuntary breathing and we have voluntary breathing. Our voluntary breathing is in our control, and it regulates our nervous system activity. So when we regulate our breathing carefully, especially if we were to use different breathing techniques or systems, so like a longer exhalation. So a longer exhalation than the inhalation. That actually engages a part of our nervous system called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve regulates our parasympathetic activity, which is our rest and digest system, our ability to let go, to release.
Let go. Yeah, that's.
Everything
I'm
ties in.
laughing. I'm laughing because how many people actually have issues with letting go?
Right.
And
Everything
it
ties
goes
in.
just with something as simple as breathing.
Absolutely. It all starts with breathing. It all starts with breathing.
Yep, since the moment we're born.
Yeah. Absolutely. Our first foray into life is a big gasp of air.
Yeah.
And then you cry a little bit after.
Totally. So how long have you been doing the massage therapist?
2.5 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And what got you into it?
I had a snowboard injury a long time ago. And one of my friends who's spends a long time training in advanced yoga techniques just put his hands on me and just kind of treated me intuitively with what he knows. And I was just shocked with how little I knew about my own body.
Yeah.
And like my shoulder injury was quite severe in the sense that my movement was heavily restricted. I could not lift my arm above this level. I could not externally rotate. I could not internally rotate very much. I was quite stuck. And so my arm was basically like here by my side. And I could kind of move it like this. Like this.
So very little rotation.
Very little range in all ranges, really.
Wow.
It was quite restricted. There was a lot of scar tissue all through my rotator cuffs. And I just did not know much about my body at all. And with my friend just kind of intuitively working on me, it expanded my mind and I started seeking out additional therapies. And it was the results changed so quick. I went from such restriction and pain to back to normal so quickly that I was just like excited to learn about my body a lot more, and that kind of, along with a few other things that happened in my life, inspired me to get into school for that.
Oh wow, okay. And through that work that you did, is possible that the scar tissue will ease or eliminate or completely what is the case with that kind of stuff?
I'm always hesitant talking about scar tissue because the science isn't the most clear around it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, okay. a lot of therapists will like make all kinds of statements, but when you look at the literature, we don't fully understand it. It's not like you can put a scope into somebody who's alive and like actually measure their scar tissue very easily unless you're under surgery. But yeah, so there scar tissue is definitely going to form, and typically what happens is when there's an injury, the body's first response is to keep you together, to hold you together. And so it's immediately just going to lay down fiber that in any position possible, in all directions, to just kind of hold things together, to keep you together, to stop the bleeding, to hold it, to repair the injury in the fastest manner possible. So it's not doing it in a aligned fashion where the fibers are aligned over each other. So you have a muscle that goes in this direction, and the job of that muscle is to like your tricep, its job is to extend your elbow out, extend your arm out. And so if there's an injury, then the fibers of your tricep muscle all go in this direction. But if there's an injury, scar tissue is going to form in every direction. And that's going to restrict your range of motion.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so we want to push through those restrictions. We want to work through them. And sometimes that involves manual techniques where you're digging in there and you're doing, you're getting into the uncomfortable places where it's sore and it's tender, and you're breaking down that scar tissue to allow the body.
You can feel it when you're doing it.
Right. You can feel that the texture of the muscle is different from what it feels like in the surrounding muscle and the surrounding tissue.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So you feel something different and you kind of work through it, and you use various techniques, active releases and so on, to help kind of realign the direction of the fibers so that they're able to get back into their range of motion again.
Wow, that's very interesting. So I hope everybody learned something for sure, something new with Maher today. We are in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and the thing with this kind of work, you have to be in Calgary in order to see Maher, okay? It's something that it cannot be done necessarily online or distant, even though that on the show that I do on Sundays in Spanish with two other guys, we had this weekend a lady that also does massage, and one of the things that she does is she does coaching and counseling on so many other things, but when she knows that there's something that she can guide the other person to kind of get to the trigger point, she actually guides the person through like the video call and stuff like that.
Yeah.
However, I don't know, that will be weird, right? Like
it's different, it's challenging, it's going to require a lot of explanation, a lot of working through it, but you know, sometimes some therapy is better than no therapy, so
exactly. So if you are in Calgary and you really want to have you know, some sort of therapy, support, help, or anything like that, Maher is definitely available. So where in Calgary they can find you for therapy?
That's a good question. I work in a clinic in West Brains currently called Momentum Health, and I'm gonna start a private clinic out of my home. So that'll be opened up in about 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, that's a good news.
Right, and so and you can find me. Connect to me through D, and I'll try to make myself more visible and have more of a online presence.
Awesome. Oh, that's gonna be good. So I'm excited, and congratulations for that. So I'm sure once his clinic gets open up, then I will be super happy to share that, and we can pay you a visit or something, and then we can share more things, because another thing that eventually I would like to have Maher back and start working, just if you can teach us like all the stretches and things like that I know we can easily suggest to people, right? To do. So those are things that are super important. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching us. And you can find Maher. You can, you know, just send me a message and I can make the introduction. But definitely he is an incredible person and an incredible professional as well. So definitely I 100% recommend you, if you're in Calgary, to go and see him for sure.
Thank you, Dee.
So thank you.
I really appreciate you having me here.
Thank you.